order to present my experience with the CLIL techniques, I thought I could imagine a learning unit about World War II. As I faced some technical troubles, I resorted to a PowerPoint presentation orally commented by myself. I tried to figure out a path through which my students could both have a concrete and adequate grasp of such a huge phenomenon, such as World War II, and at the same time develop their linguistic skills. And here is my presentation. First of all, I think it's important to give them some basic knowledge, some raw data, which can help them frame the whole phenomenon, the whole subject they are going to study. Thus, such an approach, which is fairly plain and straightforward, actually, gives me some important advantages. The first one has already been mentioned, the general frame. The second one is more specific to CLIL techniques. Since it gives me the chance to introduce some lower order thinking skills, to have my students employ some lower order thinking skills. In the next pages of this presentation, I did not cover the whole subject and all the data I want my students to know. I just made a few examples, as a whole presentation, a complete one, would take much more than 8 minutes. The advantage of such basic knowledge approach is twofold. First of all, it gives them the frame I was talking about. Secondly, it allows them to train their English a bit before delving in something deeper. It gives them the chance to build up a bit of vocab before working with extensive reading or with other more complex material. So, first of all, Fascist Italy, 1922-1943. The basic concepts they've got to master is that the dictatorship, while a real dictatorship, was not completely totalitarian. It might be said it was semi-totalitarian, as the monarchy, the king, and the church did retain some independence, albeit they actively cooperated with the regime. What's important to know is how Mussolini stressed his bellicist propaganda and how his movement was prone to political violence, especially anti-socialist and anti-communist propaganda. The main event here to remember is the Matteotti assassination in 1924. Nazi Germany, instead, provides us with a good example of a sweet and complete totalitarianization of a nation. After getting the power, Hitler was able to introduce the Nazi ideology at every level and at every corner of everyday life in Germany. School, hospitals, infrastructure, architecture, the very appearance of the public spaces was adapted to the Nazi ideology. which was militaristic, totalitarian, and violently racist, especially anti-Semitic. USSR, on the contrary, is a totalitarian regime, but with some specific issues and characters. It largely survived the World War II, and its very presence was a major issue in the political theater of that time. The other two big totalitarian movements, fascism and Nazism, also built on anti-communist propaganda. The figure of Stalin must be here introduced with just a few key data to explain how fiercely oppressive this regime was. And then, of course, some few dates which are important to correctly framing in order to correctly frame the whole phenomenon from 1939 to 1945. Here I give just a few examples of some very important events which must be remembered per se, but other could be added. It is important, though, not to exaggerate the number of these dates. They must provide a guide, they must offer guidance to the students while studying this historical period. It must not overwhelm them. At this point, with the basic knowledge, the frame, which has been correctly laid, students who have already used some English, who have already faced some some academic language, may now delve deeper into higher order thinking skills. And the material they can apply, let's say so, these higher order thinking skills could be, for example, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Treaty, as it gave the world a shock. It paved the way for the invasion of Poland, and it was a clear example of the cynical approach of these totalitarian regimes when it came to foreign policy. A plus about this Molotov-Ribbentrop Treaty is the possibility to know from a closer point of view the Katyn massacre, which was firstly attributed to the Nazis and was then found out to be Stalin's responsibility. At this point, after dealing with foreign policy, with diplomatic relationship, and with abstract concepts such as totalitarianism, anti-Semitism, and other issues, the extensive reading technique can help vary the work and help the student get another point of view, a more lively one, a more direct one. Anna Frank's diaries are the actual voice of a teenager of that age, giving her personal perspective to the tragedy she was living together with the whole population of Europe, it could be said. The advantages are multifold. It's a good way to talk about the Shoah. It's a good way to delve into the issue, but at the same time, this extensive reading is not particularly hard and can be implemented with mobile-assisted language learning. Using a smartphone as a handy dictionary can be fairly useful, although students are not supposed to look for every word on a dictionary, as this is not the philosophy of the extensive reading. The 4 C's of the CLIL approach can be easily covered. The content is clear: anti-Semitism and Shoah. Communication can also be effectively covered. First of all, with a question: how should we approach a text which was not meant for publication? This is worth debating. Furthermore, one students may discuss the issues raised by the reading itself. This is fairly obvious, but still necessary. Cognition is also covered. Once the students have grasped what was going on and what were the consequences of such a violent and oppressive ideology, they must learn, if possible, how to spot similar tendencies in the today's society. This can be also obtained through the writing of an essay. As for culture, a parallel path can be opened about anti-Semitism through the history of Europe. Anti-Semitism was not invented by Hitler. Hitler took advantage of it, and it must be understood how that was possible. At last, as the last step, there must be some assessment. Here, another essay can be a good tool, although with a teacher's guidance, who can offer a determined set of words, provide a word count, and requiring, as a last step, a conceptual map which help the teacher understand if the high order thinking skills have been put to use and possibly to good use. So that was my presentation. I do realize it is somewhat poor, but that was the best I was able to do with my technical skills. Thank you very much. Francesco Rocchi.